On this. So welcome. To tell you the truth, Jeff, before you arrived, I was gonna just say it, okay, I guess it's gonna turn into a podcast, something that long ago I was taught and still continue to master. Because as I always say, great coaches become great by practicing. And it is what I've noticed in my career that people started signing up and people started referring and renewing with me only when I was able to help them solve whatever the problem they had at the moment. Not the agenda I thought I had for them, but whatever the problem they had at the moment. And that was a key thing for me because coming out of all the schools and all the courses that I have done, after and previously, it was the structure that we were all taught. And Jeff, maybe you could tell me about that as well, because you're stepping in fully and consciously into the profession. What are you noticing in regards to coaching and how are you coaching and what are some of the, things that you could improve or maybe things that you could lean into and learn? Like, what is it for you?
One of the superpowers I think of a coach is to be able to be so tuned in, so 1000% focused on the client, listening to not only what they're saying, but listening to what they're not saying, kind of being able to read between the lines, even looking at body language to really understand and put yourself in their shoes to try to understand what's going on with them to best be able to relate to them when they go, when they're like, yes, like this person just gets me. It's all, it's just observation and listening and caring and empathy and love and wanting to be that in that space for that person. I actually had a coaching call last night. It was kind of an intake, a free, you know, 40-minute session with a guy who has a lot going on in his life. His wife, 40 years old, his wife passed away in December unexpectedly, had this, like a month earlier, was having difficulty breathing and they thought it was nothing, whatever. Finally, she had to go, they go to the emergency room and she was bouncing around from hospital to hospital and she ultimately died of pneumonia. And his whole world is turned upside down. He has two kids that now they're teenagers, but you know they're not infants or young kids, but he's having to wanting to be present for them. He's trying to change his life where he can be home for them rather than he's a truck driver, right? And he doesn't want to do that anymore because if he's driving a truck, he's not with his kids, and and trying to listen to him in terms of not only what his goals are to create a new business for himself, where he can more, still in trucking, but he wants to be like the central, like own his company, have drivers driving for him. He's dispatching, he's doing all the back end management. But he said he can't move forward because he's so stuck in his own grief that he doesn't know where to begin. And, I wanted to be there for him on multiple levels, for him to feel like he's got a friend, somebody who, who's genuinely listening. And I was genuinely listening and showing genuine empathy. So what goes into coaching? And I don't know if I'm exactly answering your question, but it's so important to, just to be extremely, extremely focused. I've heard of stories of even therapists who, if they're doing a Zoom call or something like that, and they're on their cell phones doing whatever they're doing, and they're kind of half listening, that's not the kind of provider that I want to be.
Yeah.
That's not serving them.
You're right. Jeff, you're absolutely right. It's that deep listening. It's that curiosity. Because if I get to show up like an empty canvas, present, and with my attention on this person in front of me, whether it's a Zoom call, whether it's a phone conversation, whether it's a call in person, if I get to take all the attention off of me and onto that person in front of me and get genuinely curious about what is the goal behind the goal for this person, because what people ultimately do, and whether it's in conversations, first or second, whether they're at cost or just an introductory, what people genuinely like to bring in, the surface goal. I call them a goal on the goal line, because there's a soul line and there's a goal line. And
That's
I,
good.
yeah, and I gotta be quite honest with you that for the first little bit, especially when I began and I practiced coaching, my coaching was mostly on the goal line. And that is something that, you being taught as a coach, exiting out of the school, out of the program that you know, to do's, what are you willing, what steps are you willing to put in, and all the rest of it. And only later on did I understand that, yeah, getting curious, getting still, and slowing that person down to see why. And with real questions, you don't have to have an open-ended, some kind of a question, but a beautiful question that strikes up a conversation with me is, what is life like right now? And what would you like it to be different? Because at that point, people get to tell you what is life right now like right now, and then you're going to begin to notice the gap. Okay, what is life like right now, and what would they like to be different? And then, yeah, why would you like that to change?
I
And
remember that one.
yeah, and I remember the first person that ever opened my mind up to that was Rich Litvin when I took his course. And Rich um, had this beautiful thing where he coached someone, and the only question he's asked, what else? So the person brought in the goal, and he'd be like, what
Yeah.
else? What else? What else? And I think, like, I would have been probably done. And you see, I don't know if I would have been done after the seventh, what else? But that person continued going and go, and each time it was this layer and layer and layer and
Yeah.
layer. And I remember that was an exercise that I did in Erickson. It was just that. What else? Where you actually get to enter your subconscious. You get to begin to see that it's not just the goal line, it's the soul line. Now we're talking about the purpose. Now we're talking about the fulfillment. Now we're talking about the real why behind the goal. And I remember that what infused my conversations. Um, and thank you, Jeff, for sharing that, because that is exactly it. That is how you get the person to now begin to see, what is it that they may be realizing they need to do. And in this beautiful example, yeah, this gentleman understanding that there's a lot of grief, there's a lot
And
of
he had said, he said, I don't know if now's the time for me to work with a life coach because I just, I'm going through all this stuff. And I was like, now might be the perfect time
yeah.
for you to be working with a life coach because he'd never worked with a coach before. Or he has never worked with a coach. And I don't know what his impressions were of what a life coach does. So I wanted to, at first I was almost about to ask him, what do you think a life coach is? But I changed my mind. I said, all life coaches are different out there, but let me tell you about me and my approach to coaching. And I talked about, where I talk about the inside out and the outside in approach, meaning like you can change your world outside and, to make yourself feel better inside. I can go to the gym more and that'll make me feel better. But there's also, so that's changing an external factor, a goal related thing. That's great. But also, we've got a lot of stuff going inside ourselves, whether it's past traumas, whether it's feelings of insecurity or inferiority or anything like that. And unless we can identify and work with those things to kind of clear those away, because sometimes they undermine the progress, that they're trying to do moving forward, and it just pulls them back down. I wanted to let him know that, kind of the holistic approach to coaching that I take and that I was trained to do. Um, and sometimes that means, you know, coaching can mean coming up with a very concrete, tangible action plan of steps that you can take every day. I said, or it can mean talking about some of the thoughts. I said, pay attention to those thoughts
Mm,
that tell you you'll never make it, you'll never succeed as a in your own business. Because he says he has these things that keep him from wanting to move forward with that goal. So I said, well, we want to explore that. That's what I can do as a coach.
yeah.
Or if you just need someone to talk to because your thoughts just being there to listen and whatever. And so he said, let's start with 4 sessions and we'll go from there. So
Is
that's that.
congratulations in order?
Right. Well, the congratulations will be in order when he approves the estimate that I'll be sending him. And I had to think clearly about, because I know money is a tricky topic, right? But I have to live by my own values. And to me, it's the equivalent of a sliding scale because he doesn't have, uh, I was coming in at it's not, I mean, compared to what some coaches are charging out there, it wasn't anything near that. But there was funds to a per session cost. But I said, look, if you commit to 4 sessions, I can work with that and I can reduce that. So that's going to bring your per session cost down a lot,
Yeah.
And he said, well, we can do that. Well, let's do that. So the official congratulations will be when he agrees, but I think he will.
And it is so beautiful because, oh, Jeff, thank you for sharing that because one of the things that I used to struggle with was enrollment conversations. I thought that enrollment conversations began when I had to propose. You see, the thing about enrollment conversations, they begin from the first point of contact, whether it's an email, whether it's a text, whether it's a connecting call on the phone just to see how you are. And maybe that's just a social call. And an invitation to a coaching call will follow later. But you see, enrollment begins at the first point of connection and then it continues. And even if the person said, at whatever proposal or at whichever time the person said, maybe not right now, that still means that enrollment is continuing because maybe that no is for now. And maybe a
Right.
little later, I get to continue to astonish that person. And I get to invite that person to a program, per se, that I'm running, or a workshop, or something, because I want to keep that person in my not yet list, because that person just experienced my coaching. But what I love most of all, Jeff, that you shared, and that was something that I tripped over such, oh, the price and the value. First I was tripping over the value that, I had to provide for a client, a prospect, a possible client. And you see, that is something that we will never be able to guess. How much value do we provide? Does this person gets out of our coaching? We can never know for them. What we can do,
Mhm.
just like you said, show up curious, open, listening, um, focused on them. Every time you feel like, your mind starting to chatter, okay, how much do I charge? Oh, I got a question at the back of my mind that I'd like to ask. Snap out of it, like Cher would say. Get yourself back into the conversation and keep on listening because your inner knowing, your wisdom will come up with a question when needed to. And I had to trust that and I had to practice that to the point where now I'd be in conversation and I'd be so tuned in with the body language, with whatever the person is saying, that I may just say, my question could be an open-ended or closed-ended, or I may just say, you know what? I don't know what to ask you right now. What would you ask yourself? And how many times did this change the way our conversation went? Because people on the other end of that call, they know what's important to them. So you see, the value. I was really tripping up about the value. And then what came in? So I get that layer out of the way. And then what comes in, the price. How much do I charge the person so I value my time? And that was something that I've struggled for a long, long time with until
Yeah.
I had this understanding that at this point of time, and I could compare myself endlessly to coaches out there. And and there are some that worked that have been in the business for 15, 10 years, 5 years, 7, whichever. And whatever prices they are charging, if I could compare our journeys, they probably are going to be a little different uh, than mine because I'm just the beginning. I'm just at the beginning of my journey. And I'm curious. And the only thing that I know that could help me exceed and be a better coach is practicing coaching. So at this level, at the beginner level of coaching, I asked myself, how much do I want to charge to A, practice the craft? To be in conversations with somebody. Yes, later on, I will escalate my prices as I go, as I keep on learning and I keep on growing. But as of right now, how much do I want to charge? So I feel comfortable. So I'm not feeling like I'm wasting my time. I'm a little resentful. And I understand that I want to continue practicing with
Right.
people because money commits for no other reason by that but that money commits people. And I remember I began charging people $25 per hour. That does not mean that any of you guys have to do that, but back then I slowed down and I asked myself, how many conversations do I want to have a day? And I came up that I want to have 4 conversations a day of 1 hour conversations. And I remember selling $25 coaching was easier than I ever thought. People actually went for it. When I told them that it's going to be $100 for 4 coaching sessions, people said, no brainer, let's go. And that is how I got to practice coaching, practice and practice and practice over and over again. And then my calendar got full very quickly, because you're right, Jeff. There's not one person out there, and especially in this epidemic of loneliness, that cannot use that time, somebody focusing only on them. Because when we're in conversations with our friends, what happens is that a friend cannot wait to interrupt us and tell, their side of the story. And we're always in this constant battle. What happens with a coach? Coach listens to you. And coach is your accountability partner. Yeah, he or she get to ask whether that got done, or maybe there's something else to it or not. What are you hearing out of this for you, Jeff?
Um, you know, there is certainly a business side to coaching. It's a profession. And as a profession, there is a cost. It's a cost that covers all the training that someone has done, all the, all the work, all the back end stuff. There's the nuts and bolts of the real world costs that go into becoming a coach. And there's the cost that goes into the time that someone is devoting to that client. And that is worth something. And it's worth it's not it's not something to be given away unless that's a very conscious decision that a coach makes. Now, whether they choose to charge $25 or $10 or something, it's the act of saying, I I'm worth being compensated for. And then it's the art and the skill, and really the decision of the coach, how much,
Mm.
right? Now, and depending on who your target audience, like corporate coaches and all that stuff, can probably ask a pretty hefty rate. It's a lot of work to do corporate coaching and for it to be successful and to do it well. Um, and so one of the, as I, am at this early stage of my journey, finding where is that line where I feel comfortable claiming my good while also being sensitive to my to the client, to the audience, and to say, um, what am I willing to accept, and what am I going to say? I'm sorry, that's not really. Oh, well, well, I could offer you a dollar, whatever. I might say yes. I might say I like you.
Yeah,
Sure,
yeah,
I'll charge you a dollar.
yeah. You got it, Jeff, because like I said, at the beginning of this game, for some reason, we are all mixing up money with our worth, and it has nothing to do with our worth. Money is just an exchange. It's just,
Mhm.
like back then, you remember when, oh, well, you and I probably can't remember, where when people were bartering, give me fish for butter or give me, I don't know,
Oh,
whatever.
bartering, or is that what you
Barter.
meant?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
bartering.
okay.
Yeah. Well, this is exactly what happens right now, except we're not using butter or milk or I don't know, wheat or anything. We're actually exchanging the money. And you see, money for some reason, and that is something that I have the whole program on that will begin on March 23rd. If you're curious, please show up because that was something that I had to do. I had to understand that my worth and whatever the number had nothing in common. My worth is my worth. I know where I'm at. I know the journey, and I know that it's going to take me a while. And if I put my head down and just continue to show up consistently to my practice, coaching people, because at the beginning, I was volunteering a lot. I was volunteering a lot of hours and still do because I consciously choose to. There are two um, uh, nonprofits that I consciously choose to volunteer my hours to. And then it came a question, well, how do I want to show up in this professional game of coaching? I'm not social anymore. I want to,
Hmm.
have social and professional separate a little bit. So, what is it going to look for me to begin to practice my craft? Because I know where I'm at. I know that I'm just at the beginning of my journey. So, how can I get people and continue having conversations with people so I could be practicing, so I could be learning through them? Because I got to be honest with you, some of the questions that people bring in as a new coach, I didn't expect. Some of the situations, like I remember running back to my coach and asking questions, And
Yeah. What do
these,
I do?
yeah, and these, what I used to call them tough clients, were the clients that I got to learn from. Because as they were showing up on my journey and I got to practice, and I've practiced, oh, Jeff, I could tell you there were people that I coached that were coachable. There were people that were so non-coachable. It was, oh God, it was unbelievable. And yet, until I practiced that, I didn't know who was coachable, who was not coachable. And you see, that
Mhm.
practice then brought me to when I noticed that my calendar kept on filling in, I raised my price to $50. Then I raised my price to $75. Then I realized that people were signing up not just hourly, but people knew that 1 month, 2 months, 3 months isn't going to do anything. People would sign up for 6 months. People would sign up for a
Uh,
year to work with me. And that when you begin to practice your, because now you have been through a conversation, transformation with a coach. Now you get to continue your own transformation as a coach with somebody else, again, through practice. And you see, that is where I want to make sure that coaches, especially new coaches, they don't mix their worth with money because it has nothing to do with, it is, here's me knowing exactly where I'm at, owning my position in coaching. Yeah, I'm in 1, 2, 3 years into coaching. I'm still practicing and it's okay. I'm going to get somewhere. And Jeff, I can guarantee you that you will. If I did it, anyone can do it. Anyone can do.
mhm.
And it's this consistent showing up and it's this practice, practice, and practice that will get you better as a coach. Because I remember myself too at the beginning of the game. I couldn't sign one client in. It was hard. And only until I began to understand how can I be of help, of service to these people at the moment to whatever else they're bringing into the game. And that was something I will never forget. Steve Chandler sharing this ladder of consciousness with me. And ladder of consciousness meant, imagine a ladder, right? These are lower steps, these are some steps in the middle, and these are upper steps. And Steve referred to ladder of consciousness towards us coaches. So we had to visualize ourselves. Where are we on the ladder? And the way it went, the bottom steps were, the steps where the mood was, I had a lot of fear, I had a lot of anxiety, I had a lot of frustration. And where this frustration usually comes from fear, from scarcity that we ourselves are creating, by thinking in
Mhm.
the future, I'll never be, I don't have too much and all the rest of it. As you get towards the middle of the ladder, there are things that are beginning to show up lesser than. For example, we're not experiencing so much of anxiety and fear anymore. And yet there's this emotional discomfort, this discomfort of a bit of a resentment, resistance, but we could actually be quiet about it. We could, sort of bottle it up and not share it with anybody. And then the top of the ladder. And what happens at the top of the ladder? Where I can show up inspired, light,
Mhm.
where I can show up enthusiastic, and like Steve says, in spirit. And what brings us in spirit? I could have whatever that works for me. I could notice where I am on that ladder. And if I want to be on the top of the ladder, I consciously try to do something about it. And for me, it was meditating. For me, it was getting myself into that positive state of mind at the beginning, practicing that. with my
Mm.
morning routine, with my practices, with my walks, because, and that is something that I want to talk about next, the health of the healer. What are we doing for ourselves to bring ourselves to the top of the ladder? Because we're human beings. We could be here, we could be here, we could be here. But where coaching has an amazing impact on our clients is if we show up from the top of the ladder, which means we are enthusiastic, we are positive, we have so much inspiration that we could bring our client also to the top of the ladder. And now here's a trick. In your conversations with a client, try to see where are they on their ladder of consciousness. Because very quickly, by the words that are saying, I should, I have to, I must, you could get where they're at. Because the person
Mhm.
that is inspired, the person that is full of action and positive and optimistic, you will never hear the words I need to. Oh, yeah, I should be doing that, but
Yeah.
no, you'll hear I got to do it. I had a
I'm
conversation with,
doing that.
right? The
Yeah.
uplifting. And this is how we coaches have to consciously bring ourselves to that, because coaching from the top of the ladder is what gets clients signed up. Now, the only way we will get to connect with the client if in our conversation we bring the client also to the top of the ladder. So now both of us are feeling inspired, enthusiastic,
Mhm.
upbeat, positive. And how do we do that? The two things that I learned: relax your client, really. And that could be in the various of ways. The way I like to do that, especially when the person comes in and is like, well, I've been rejected, well, or I've been let go, I've broken up, all of that. You could share your story as well. Yeah, me too. Yeah, I could remember what it feels like. And now the person is like, oh, I'm not the only one. We could relate. And now the person gets to open up even more and more, because the quicker we get our prospect, our coaching client, to feel that we are equal, the quicker
Mhm.
he or she will get to the top of that ladder. How related their story is to ours. And that's what brings me to a third topic that I remember I learned. Never share the benefits of coaching, share the stories.
Mhm.
And if you don't have stories to share, of you, because I remember being a new coach too, and I was like, well, how many clients do I have? I don't have any clients. I used to bring my stories in, or stories that I've heard of people. My coach would share with me, what has happened, and I would share, yeah, yeah, I have an example of that. Um, this person went through this transformation, and I would tell the story. Why? Because you see, we as people, we've got two sides to the brain. The right is, the ones that sees and creates, and left that is logical. And if I show up and all I want to talk about benefits of coaching, and yeah, the coaching will do this for you, the coaching will do that for you, and this is how the coaching works. The other person sits there and with the left brain kind of goes, yeah, I'm not sure I trust that. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
gonna take a lot of convincing. Yeah, it may work for you, but how do we know it's gonna work for me? Now, bring in the story, your story, or story of somebody that you've helped out, or a story of your coach, or any story, transformational story that has something to do with whatever the client is going through. And what I always tell new coaches to do: write those stories down, keep them in front of you. A story that the person got let go, a story of grief, just like the one you're experiencing currently with your client, your own stories. how you overcome, because when it comes from you and you overcoming the hurdles in your life, you seeing the transformation because of this part of our brain, the right part. Now people begin to see the stories and they begin to relate. Now, the logical part doesn't interfere. For example, Jeff, let me get this. And you must have heard this, when the person says, "Please do not think of a blue elephant." Just don't try to imagine a blue elephant. You see, our beautiful right brain, they don't know the picture to the word don't. All we're
Hmm.
picturing is the blue elephant. You see? And that's how the stories get applied, because now the person could see the story, could imagine, could relate, and through that have some kind of motivational insights for themselves. And I've seen it work over and over and over. And that is why I always say never share benefits, share stories. Stories of your transformation, stories of
Hmm.
transformations with your clients, stories that you have seen. What's landing, Jeff? What are you hearing?
Well, one of the things that I've actually been very curious about is the art of storytelling,
Mm,
right? You hear it, storytelling in business, because people, it's a way to draw people in and get people to understand something rather than, I agree with you, rather than say, well, coaching can benefit you in multiple ways, including greater self-esteem, greater awareness of yourself and others, blah, 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 right? But, and also by living by example, being that living example
yeah,
of, no one has said a life coach is perfect. I surely am not. Um, but I'm aware of and become more aware every day as I get older, whatever, of what true optimal living is and, how to just keep going despite adversity, how to channel energy, and whatever. And if I can share those stories
yeah,
about how I did that. I told a story of I have with my students, they're student slash coaching clients, and I had a guy. He booked four sessions or lessons in within 3 days, really crammed in because he said, I have a presentation that I have to give on Monday to the vice president of Latin America, like it's for a multinational company, and I'm freaking out because he's Brazilian, but he has to do it in English. Now his English level is very good. And I thought, you know, okay, your presentation is in 3 days. What do you want to get out of our time together? What's going to give you that confidence? And then he goes, well, I don't know. It's like phrasal verbs. I don't know that many phrasal verbs, and I feel like I should, speaking, be speaking better. And I said, you know, phrasal verbs are great, but how many phrasal verbs are you going to learn in 3 days, and why? Your English is very good. What you should consider focusing on is bringing the best of yourself to this presentation with enthusiasm and really wanting to help educate the vice president about the work that your department is doing
yeah,
and and just shining, you being you. You don't need to be more. First of all, your English is at a very good level. You have nothing to worry about as far as that. I said, remember though, in public speaking, energy levels, adrenaline gets high, and sometimes we want to speak faster because subconsciously we want to get it over with. Be aware of that because when that happens, the listener might not, you might be speaking very quickly. They might lose intelligibility. They not sure exactly what you're saying because you're going too fast. Remember to put yourself in their shoes. Make eye contact with the vice president, but make eye contact with others in the room. Bring them into the conversation.
Yeah.
Um, so it's a matter of bringing something to life. How do you bring that to life? And I was able to fortunately do that for him. He was so excited. I have to actually reach out to him to see how that presentation went. I
Yeah.
said, I already know how it's going to go. You're going to be amazing, but you're going to have to go through what you're going to have to go through in order to know what I already know.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. You see, right there. Yeah, right there, Jeff. You were, because, at the beginning, you shared the story with, excuse me, with the grief of your client. And I remember the first contract I had to sign for a lot of money. And it was right on the verge of me splitting up. It was a really hard time in my life, and it was 3.5 years ago. And here I am, suffering emotionally in my personal life and fully knowing where I want my business to be and continuing to show up consistently and signing up this top of the ladder coach, knowing the reasons and all the rest of it. And I remember I was so pumped, and I showed up to our first session, and just like you said, I'm watching the time because it's 1 hour. I'm all over the place. I'm struggling. I'm until she finally calmed me down, and she relaxed me. She essentially brought me to the top of the ladder, where I was able to just share with her what I was going through, to have that understanding that we are just humans having a human experience, first of all. And then, on top of that, trying to do whatever it is happening in our life. So I remember that whole thing about slowing down and seeing what is real was my first lesson in coaching. Yeah, nevertheless, it went about making the money and all the rest of it, but also seeing what's showing up in your life and how who you want to be in that conversation. How do you want to show up, and what is the message you want to bring across? And I remember that took a while. So kudos to you, Jeff. Amazing what you've done with these two stories. And it is that personal transformation that at the end of the day we could just share, leave it out on the table for a person. And like, I'm not even hoping anymore that a person gets any kind of value. All I can do is serve to my fullest,
Yep.
continue learning, and let the person decide what was of value or what was not. Because they're clever. They have their own values to align with. So, Jeff, I'm seeing that we've got little more than 10 minutes. Is there anything else that you would like to ask, or any questions that you have that will enhance your coaching experience with someone that you coach, for example, or yourself being coached?
Well, something that I've been it's been on my mind lately, and I'm trying to think how I would. A lot of times when I need coaching in something, I'll ask myself, well, how would I coach someone who is coming to me with the same issue, concerns, whatever? And sometimes I can do that. Well, I would say this, and I would say this, and I would say this, and I would encourage them to do more of this and be mindful of this. But when it comes to ourselves, sometimes that's a tough nut to crack because it's like we're great at, helping other people, but we're not. And
Do you want to know
I
why?
really actually,
Do you want to know why?
why?
Because
Yeah.
because of our identities. Because every time we try to do the work on ourselves, and that's why that's why I will never stop saying that each and every one needs coaches, needs therapists, because it is really hard to do the work by myself, on myself. It's like there's a separate I that I'm trying to do the work on, and our beautiful identities and egoic minds, they show up and they're so clever how to turn it away and all the rest of it. Oh, I love where you're going with that. Go on.
So one of the things I've been, I have a big birthday coming up at the end of the month, and I'm starting to become mindful of aging, right? I'm not saying I've never I don't even say those words, I feel so blank, because I won't say that, but I hear people far younger than me saying, "Oh, I'm getting so." It's like, why would you say that? That's living in an expectation. It's like, of course my knee hurts because I'm getting so blank. Instead of my knee hurts, or maybe I just was exercising too hard or something. But what I've been noticing is that my life is so between getting up at, starting teaching at 5:30 or 6 in the morning, doing that till 9, then getting pulled into the vortex of my work, which has been very intense lately, while trying to also through the nooks and crannies of, my day when I'm not doing something is coaching related, trying to, do something that's going to keep pushing my coaching practice forward. Um, Along with personal responsibilities and things that, making sure I'm allowing time for my sister or my girlfriend or whatever. And it's very easy for me to take the idea of health and wellness for myself and knock it down to a very low level of priority. Now I'm fortunate in that I don't have a weight problem. I mean, I know if I don't exercise, my weight goes up, but I'll never be a fat person. Um, but I know that, maybe my back is a lot stiffer than it used to be because I'm not doing any stretching. I'm not doing any core strength exercises. I'm certainly doing no cardio right now.
Mm,
And I'm trying to get myself to a place of getting of being able to just raise that priority level.
mm,
Now some people can spend 3 hours at the gym every day. That's not realistic for me. I have too many things going on. Um, but for me to, so that is maybe one extreme. Yeah, I'm going to go work out 3 hours a day. Not going to happen. Nor do I want the opposite to be true. Well, I don't have time,
yeah.
right? I was in a hospital recently. I had to bring my girlfriend for some tests that she was doing. And, you spend enough time in a hospital and you're living what illness and unwell looks like, or people who are aging that, I'm not talking about, 90-year-old people, but people who are maybe not that far away, that many years older than me, and they're frail and they're, and even with that, so that's kind of what planted the seed of like, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be that person. So I'll tell myself logically, well, good that you observed it. Um, but it doesn't happen by magic. There's no magic wand. You actually have to take the time, slow down. That's my Irina-ism, slow down.
Go to
I think it's a
pray.
good one. You get all credit.
You,
And remember why not I need to, remember why I want this as part of my life. Plus, if I'm going to set as an example to clients as living a vibrant life, health, wellness, fitness have to be a part of my life, to at least some degree. And so that's where I am. Now I'm just
I love, Jeff,
getting
I
myself
love
back in.
how you corrected yourself. Oh, you went, well, I have to. Oh, I want to. That's it.
Yeah.
Now I'm hearing not a victim. I'm hearing the person that wants to, I want to, I get to do it. And Jeff, it is so beautiful you brought this in because I remember learning about systems. And I remember first hearing, every system is perfect for the results that it gets. And if I am noticing myself, and the same happened to me over Christmas, I got really sick, and I'm a tall girl. I'm a 5'11", and I walk those hills like nobody's
Oh,
business.
well, we're not
Yeah.
the same side, not
So
the same height, I can tell you that.
yeah, I'm 6 foot, yeah, whatever. When I'm on those hills, you better see me. I'm really out there. So what happens when I overwalk those hills, my lower back begins to hurt. And over Christmas and being in New York, I've realized like it really threw me off. Like I couldn't walk. Like I wore a running shoes and I barely walked around, constantly complaining about
Um,
my back hurting.
um,
And I got home and I get to sit there and think about it. I go, okay, what happened? Why am I experiencing such pain? And I realized that my fitness routine was thrown off. That up until November, I worked out, everything was great, and for some one reason or the other, I stopped. And ta-da, that was, and that's what I always say. Every system is perfect for the results that it gets. I got a bad back. Okay, time to rethink my system. All right, where is it coming from? Oh, you haven't been working out, Missy. Okay, time to get back. And I remember this amazing, and I believe I recently shared, I was in a master class with Stephen McGee, and he was the first coach a long time ago that I took a course from. He spoke about morning routine or any sort of routine that us healers, coaches should have. And then Stephen McGee spoke about something that I can't even recall what I wanted to say. Yeah, you see, that's things going, coming and going. Excuse me. And Stephen McGee spoke something about really owning. And he goes, he's a climber. It went back to me. He's a climber. And Stephen McGee climbs Kilimanjaro and
like
yeah,
that's
yeah.
climbing with capital letters climbing.
Oh yeah. And actually he took it from his brother. His brother is some Olympic champion, the Everest and all the rest of it. And he goes, one day I get this client. And this guy writes to me and he goes, Steve, I want to be the part. And Steve McGee takes his coaching clients to climb Kilimanjaro with him. So like I'm thrilled. I know I'm gonna do it one day. Not yet. So and this guy reaches out to Steve and he goes, Steve, I want to climb your next Kilimanjaro. They get on the call and Steve goes, how's your health? And he's seeing that the guy's overweight a little bit. He goes, yeah, I'm overweight, but I really want to do that. He goes, okay, let's create a system. Where would you like to begin?
Hmm.
Where are you at? How much exercises do you do right now? And where do you want to be? And what is the 1% shift, the little step that we could take towards this journey of healing you and getting you to that Kilimanjaro? They ended up working for 3 years. The guy climbed. But
Wow.
you know what his first step was? One block around his house.
Hmm.
One block around his house. And I back then took this story to my heart. And again, you see the story, not the benefits of coaching, the story. And I went, where? And this time, knowing how bad my back was, I showed up, I hired a professional trainer, and I said exactly that. I go, I know I haven't been working out. My back is really bad, but I want to climb Kilimanjaro one day. He goes, okay, let's begin. And we began one lesson a week. Today, 4 months later, 2 months, 2.5 months later, I'm showing up 3 times a week and I'm loving it. You see, it's always a system and it's always that first step. Where would you like to begin? Because,
Hmm.
and it's always on that borderline of comfort, discomfort, laying into the discomfort. Jeff, I'm noticing that our time is up. How did you enjoy this call?
Immensely. It's great. Covered a lot of ground in 1 hour,
Yeah.
including listening to some unexpected rap music.
John. Yeah. Yeah.
John W.
John showed up. Yeah. I don't know what it was. Jeff, I want to say thank you. Thank you for showing up for you because it is in that consistency, in that learning, will you reach your goals. And as Carolyn Fryer Jones always said, being a new coach, and that is something that I could attest to, just put your head down and do the steps. And for others it happens faster, slower, differently. For me, it took 2 years. It took two solid
Hmm.
years to begin to see, begin to practice, begin, the first year practicing coaching people that were never and should never be coachable. And nevertheless, being paid to practice. That is the lesson that I always took away. I didn't care. It didn't have anything to do with my worth. As long as I get to do what I love, I get to coach, I get to practice, and I don't get to do it for free. I get to do it at the price that I own. And if it's
Yeah.
$25, I own it. If it's $50, great. If it's $10,000 a year, let's go. You see, and as you go, as you continue practicing, you will get there. It happened. It happened for me. Otherwise I wouldn't be sitting here. People ask me, Irina, do you prepare notes? I don't have any notes. Because when you speak from an experience, when you speak from learning, you don't have to have the notes. It's there. Jeff, I will see you next week. And I'll think whether I'll be posting this video or not. Mm.
And that's up to you.
Okay.
Doesn't, I got to live it, so I don't need to see it again.
All right.
Um,
I think it
but
will be of service to other coaches because we've covered a lot of ground here, and plus got to listen to some R&B.
you'll have to edit the two together, won't you? Like there'll be two different, like
Hold
how's
on,
that going to work?
hold on. Let me stop the recording. I have no idea how to do that, and I think that's hold on, where do I? Okay, there we go. Yeah, I paused the recording. Okay. Oh, hold on.